The information that I'll be presenting today is on the Mediterranean diet, and this presentation was made by Taylor Parker, Taylor Dean, Bailey Christian, and Gloria Duncan. So, going to start with just an overview of the diet. So the origin of this diet is obviously from the Mediterranean region, and it's kind of an expression of different food cultures that are all present in the region. And although they've continually evolved with culture and individual countries' changes in culture, they still all have very similar characteristics, kind of all in this same theme. So some of the common characteristics are that they, in the diet, has high amounts of olive oil and olives, which is the primary source of fat, fruits, vegetables, cereals, legumes, nuts, moderate amounts of fish and dairy products, and low quantities of meat and meat products. And they also tend to drink wine in moderation at mealtimes. For the macronutrient distribution, it's not specific in terms of measuring exact proportions, but it does talk about limiting dairy products and red meat and emphasizing more fish and poultry as like the main dish. So just kind of more about that plant-based than the animal-based diet. And for the caloric intake, it doesn't single out specific food items or limit calories. It just kind of emphasizes the abundance of plant foods. So it's not the type of diet that's going to really try to measure your caloric intake. It's looking more to just give you a healthy lifestyle type of diet. So this is a diet pyramid, and this is kind of showing a little bit more in detail different proportions and how much you should be having of each of them. And so you'll see toward the bottom, you have your fruits and vegetables, your breads and pastas, and then as you go higher up, those are the foods that should be eaten with less frequency and in smaller proportions, and that's like your red meat and your sweets. And what we'll see with this is that a lot of the researchers are saying that no specific component of the Mediterranean diet has been shown to be as beneficial as the whole thing. So that's kind of saying that you can't just take little bits and pieces of this diet and just assume that it's going to work the same way. You kind of have to look at this in a holistic way and really take each piece of it and use it toward the way that you're going to eat and live on a daily basis. And the cool thing about this is that we saw when we looked at the American Heart Association and some other, like the USDA, the Department of Agriculture, which sets standards for Americans on how we should be eating, it actually looks really similar to the Mediterranean diet pyramid. So we'll see on this next slide that we have the Choose MyPlate, which the USDA nutrition program came up with, and it's the USDA Nutrition Policy and Promotion group. They came up with this Choose MyPlate, which is their idea of the proportions that people in America should be eating for each meal. So as you can see, this is also more plant-based, with vegetables being the biggest proportion. And then it also emphasizes low-fat dairy products, variety of fruits and veggies, lean protein, and whole grains. The next thing we're going to talk about is the main goal of the Mediterranean diet. And the main goal is to prevent chronic diseases such as cardiovascular disease, diabetes, which mainly lowers the glucose level in type 2 diabetics, and metabolic syndrome, which means that this diet can help with lowering blood pressure, reducing excess body fat, and reducing cholesterol levels. There wasn't a lot of research on the Mediterranean diet in relation to weight loss, but weight loss does occur, especially when paired with physical activity. So in the American Journal of Medicine, it was noted that people who follow the Mediterranean diet lose anywhere from 9 to 22 pounds and still keep it off after a year when compared to other diets. As discussed previously, the Mediterranean diet risks for type 2 diabetes, and according to the article written by Levine in 2018, the Mediterranean diet can lower the risk of type 2 diabetes by up to 52%. So again, this is just covering some of the foods that you'll see typically in this diet, and showing that commonly the foods eaten within the diet consist of plant-based foods and not meat-based foods. Olive oil is predominantly used to cook any meal in the Mediterranean diet. Foods restricted on this diet are refined grains such as white bread and white pasta, refined oils such as canola and soybean oil, processed meats, and sugar-sweetened beverages. So foods eaten in moderation are dairy and poultry, red wine, red meats that are usually eaten on rare occasions. Listed here are combinations of meals for breakfast, lunch, and dinner that would be consumed in the Mediterranean diet. So for breakfast, there's avocados with whole grain toast, and then some other options as well. For breakfast, for lunch, we'll see whole grain sandwiches with vegetables or salad with other vegetable ingredients. For dinner, you can have Mediterranean pizza with whole wheat dough, cheese, vegetables, olives. Another meal could be broiled salmon with brown rice and a vegetable. Most meals are usually eaten with a side of fruit as well. And here are just a few images of the Mediterranean meals I described in the previous slide to give you a visual of how the food looks when prepared. And as you can see within the Mediterranean diet, no foods are fried or greasy. They are light, healthy, and they hold great nutritional value. So now we're going to get into a little bit of the research behind the information that we'd found. On or about the 1960s, trends in world health statistics were noted and concluded that coronary heart disease caused fewer deaths in Mediterranean countries such as Greece and Italy than in the US and Northern Europe. Dr. Steinbaum, a treating physician, noted that after monitoring her patients with this diet, weight changed, laboratory findings changed for the better, and patients reported an increase in energy levels. Researchers took note to the reduced cardiovascular findings as well as medical improvement in other body systems for persons on the Mediterranean diet. It also should be noted that although the studies and correlations between diet and health are compelling, research has not sufficiently proven direct causation between cardiovascular and other body system health. So this is kind of just laying out the pros and cons of the diet so you can see it on a more concise level. So the pros that we've already talked about throughout this presentation are that if with the right amount of physical activity and also controlling for caloric intake, you will see weight loss occur. And it also provides improvements in cognitive and overall mental health functioning, decrease in body inflammation, and improvement in cardiovascular function. And it has even been shown to be preventative for certain cancers. And lastly, it can also be environmentally sustainable because of the fact that it is plant-based for the most part. And then as far as the cons, the biggest one is just that the diet can be vague. It's not super specific in terms of exact proportions or calories, so that can make it kind of difficult in figuring out what works with this diet, what doesn't. So that's why it's important that you seek medical guidance and advice, and especially if you have pre-existing medical issues. There are some diets that are just better suited for people who do not have pre-existing conditions. Another thing that could be seen as a con is that they do regularly consume alcohol, which can be a risk for people who have pre-existing conditions. And in general, it should really just be seen as something that should be taken with moderation. And then again, as I spoke of before, there are no specific caloric intake restrictions, which can be difficult for someone who wants to see results fast. So we were asked if we would recommend this diet or not, and we said yes. With the consult of a medical and dietary specialist, this diet is recommended due to the cardiovascular and other body system benefits. It reduces cardiovascular disease risk by way of controlling blood pressure and lipids, improving BMI, waist circumference, and endothelial function. And it also provides increased antioxidant properties and anti-inflammatory effects. So just the effects that it has on the body system as a whole are really make it worth looking into. And it's also sustainable and balanced. It supports a way of life rather than a quick fix for weight loss. So this is not a diet that's going to show fast results, but it is something that can like weight loss is attainable over time, and it's something that you can really build a healthy life around. And going along with that, it helps reduce the risk of chronic conditions along with weight loss. And here's just our references page. Thank you so much.